Well, I wanted to take a brief break from my, traditionally American attitude towards the rest of the world, which is a staunch belief that it doesn't actually exist, and acknowledge that world in the form of talking about American politics. Who here knows who Viktor Orban is? Does anyone know? Hands in chat, hands raised. At least 5 people. It's not exactly a secret that Hungary is hungry for authoritarianism. Viktor Orban is a fascist. You can't really get around that. No need to parse words. And he's also a darling child of, current Republican fanfare. They were praising Orban at CPAC? Really? Well, it'd be a crazy coincidence if we were about to talk about that. Here's the thing. Orban did some very tactical trolling to arrive at the point he's at right now. Let's look at something here, okay? Do you guys remember where the last CPAC was held? Looking in chat, I'm waiting. Hungary. It was in Hungary. The Republican Party is very buddy-buddy with Viktor Orban right now. No, it wasn't what? Wait, wasn't it the one before that? Wait, yeah, wasn't it? The last CPAC in Hungary. Now chat goes quiet? You're going to leave me in this? They mean because the last one was in Dallas? CPAC Hungary. I hate you people. I had a rhythm here. On the website, CPAC Hungary. Yeah, okay. The one before the current one? That's what I said! The last one! Alright, we're watching the video. Was that like a separate event, though? The last CPAC... Alright, focus.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is how we fight. A speech by Prime Minister of Hungary, Viktor Orban.
No copyright Reno. Look at him. Some banging trap music to go along with this tyrant of masculinity. Let's go. Why would an American political organization have a conference in a foreign country? Makes you wonder.
Thank you, everybody. It's great to be with you. It's fantastic to be here in Texas.
CPAC 2021 was in Orlando. Yeah, I know. I covered it. I meant the CPAC event in Hungary. Don't you think it's noteworthy that an American political party would have a separate adjacent conference that they hold in fucking Hungary? Not a close trading partner, not a close political partner, a country that is led by a leader who is currently engaged in a policy of anti-West and anti-American political fractioning. And like, do you think it's exceptional that they might do that? Like, there might be a point to why they're doing that? What about Hungary is of note and importance to the current Republican Party? Let's wonder.
The Lone Star State of the great United States of America. If I am correct, Lone Star State means that independence, freedom, and sovereignty are the dearest values in this part of America. If this is true, and it must be true as I look around, then we have something in common, even in Hungary is over 5,000 miles from Dallas. My country, Hungary, is the Lone Star State of Europe.
An interesting comparison to draw.
The main difference between our countries is that, unfortunately, the Ewing Oil Company is not paying corporate income tax in Budapest. But independence, freedom, and sovereignty is what we Hungarians fought for in the last 500 years. We fought for Christianity in the Middle and Modern Ages, and we fought for Christian democracy in the 20th century and continue to fight to this day. We are a nation of 15 million in the heart of Europe with a unique language. Pope Francis once told me that Hungarian was the official language in heaven because it takes an eternity to learn. It's just a slight exaggeration. That's probably enough to know about Hungary. As for myself, you should know that I am an old-fashioned freedom fighter.
We'll get to that.
I am also the longest-serving prime minister in Europe.
That is true.
The only anti-migration political leader on our continent, a father of 5 and grandfather to 5 grandchildren, a leader of a country that is under the siege of progressive liberals day by day. There are many things that a Central European, anti-communist, old-fashioned freedom fighter raised under communist rule never dared to dream of. One of them is giving a speech at a CPAC here in the United States. In the land of the free,
so this probably doesn't require some Giga Chad 9 trillion IQ theorizing to fully parse, but when somebody in Hungary describes themselves as an anti-communist freedom fighter, you might wonder if there are any other large political blocs active in that region that were also anti-communist that there might be an association with. When I call him a fascist here, I think he might actually be a Nazi, or at least an ideological descendant of a Nazi. This was from just like 2 weeks ago. Viktor Orban sparks outrage with attack on race mixing in Europe. I know that title sounds a little bit incendiary, but it's actually worse than the title suggests. Hold on. We Hungarians are not a mixed race, and we do not want to become a mixed race, said Orban on Saturday. He added that countries where European and non-Europeans mingle were no longer nations. This feels particularly pertinent given the conversation I had a couple of days ago. Kathleen Sihe, an MEP from the opposition Momentum Party, said she was appalled by the Prime Minister's speech. His statements recall a time I think we would all like to forget. And went on to say, your skin color may be different. You may come from Europe or beyond, but you are one of us. We're proud of you. Diversity strengthens the nation, doesn't weaken it. That's the opposition party, not Viktor Orban himself. Did you guys know that media in Hungary is largely controlled by the state? That there's a constitution that was written by Orban's party? And that, I believe in the last election, Orban's opponent only got 5 minutes of television time? Because he controls the state. So, who are you going to vote for? The funny thing is, in the last election, he actually only managed 54% of the popular vote. So, apparently the people aren't actually that favorable towards him, despite his overwhelming control of the media. But 54% of the popular vote translated into over 80% of the district vote awards, because in Hungary's system, a minority of the population can win federal elections through gerrymandering and disproportionate voting bias towards some districts. If you can imagine such a thing. Yeah, when I say he is either a Nazi or a descendant of one, I think I actually read this article before. Not long ago, at an event dedicated to fighting anti-Semitism in the European Parliament, Hungarian State Secretary Takak. Jesus. Okay. Attacks on George Soros. It's a Hungarian anti-migrant endangers all minorities, not just Jews. Hungarian leader is rewriting his country's history of the period. In the Holocaust Remembrance Project I recently edited, we show how the country's right-wing government has rehabilitated wartime figures as anti-communist icons. anti-communist freedom fighter. Anything more specific here? The Hungarian government is minimizing its country's participation in the genocide, rehabilitating war criminals, and introducing anti-Semitic writers into the national curriculum. Ah, I wish it had a hyperlink to explain this further. We're on a bit of a tangent right now. So, look. We have an authoritarian leader who has ruled for decades now, who considers himself an anti-communist freedom fighter, and whose government has been essentially whitewashing Nazi collaboration as a kind of preemptive anti-communist freedom fighting. He's anti-race mixing and wants a racially pure Hungary, so we can continue to get the spectacular, what's the term? Phrenology? What is the term for the facial morphology? The ones the Nazis like, that I like using as well? Phenotype? No. Not eugenics. No, not eugenics. When you say physiognomy. Thank you. The spectacular physiognomy here on display. The brave center part. He is, I feel like I'm not selling this point. Let me try this again, okay? Why are the Republicans so interested in Viktor Orban? There are two reasons. First, he is as far right as they want to be openly. The Republican Party in America... The Republican Party in America wants to be as openly far right as he is. They have made moves towards it. They have gestured at it. They have made efforts to move in that direction successfully. He represents what they cannot yet be. Openly pro-ethno-state, anti-race mixing, anti-Semitic, though we would do it in our own patronizing Zionist fashion. The anti-Semitism of the Republican Party is less pronounced than many European far-right groups, but when it fully manifests, it will take the form of Ben Shapiro's bad Jew, good Jew dynamic, where the good, tolerable Jews are Jewish essentially in name only. They don't actually reinforce or fight for any Judaic practices. They are firmly pro-Zionist, and their political activism begins and ends right there. And the bad Jews are the majority of the Jewish population in America, which votes Democrat. That's the idea. I am reminded of Ben Shapiro, who is anti-abortion and promotes Judeo-Christian values in spite of them not existing. There's no such thing. That's a term that was invented by Republicans, this Judeo-Christian values. I don't know what that means. And despite the fact that Torah advocates the right to abortion, he's anti-abortion. It just makes me wonder where his political biases are, because he seems to always side with the Christians whenever there's a split. Very pointed, very confusing. His political biases are just unfathomable. So why Orban specifically? There are far-right leaders all over the world, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so let's take a look at Orban. As tempted as I am to go through, the whole of it, I want to focus on the main points here, which is fundamentally that Orban has pursued his authoritarian power grab. Well, I'll just read the article. Unlike many strongmen, Orban has not taken advantage of a crisis to amass power, nor used a coup to come to power, but made himself safe from the danger of losing an election slowly, methodically, and legally, with his pro-democracy opposition being compared to the proverbial frog that is slowly boiled in a pot so it never jumps. See, he's the other way of succeeding in a fascist takeover, by slowly eroding at an institution until you're capable of legally supplanting all of the measures that are meant to prevent people like you from taking charge. Orban has passed laws, amended the constitution, and finally written a new constitution, allowing him to do what he wanted to do. Civic institutions, such as courts, universities, and the apparatus necessary for free elections remain, but have been patiently debilitated, delegitimized, hollowed out, controlled by Orban loyalists. Does that sound in any way familiar to you? Domination of the media by Orban prevents the public from hearing critics' point of view. In 2022, Orban's opponent was given but 5 minutes on the national television to make his case to the voters. That's where I cited that earlier. Pretty spectacular, huh? How many minutes of airtime do you think the Prime Minister got during that same duration? An example of the discreet below-the-radar process of accumulating power by Orban and his party was the creation of a special police force that started as a small anti-terror unit. The unit grew and became more powerful bit by bit in disparate clauses buried in unrelated laws. I was reading Article 61 of a bill on public waterworks, literally, and I came across a line that said, oh, by the way, the anti-terror unit now gets to collect personal info on all water utility customers, which basically means everyone in the country without notifying them. CPAC contends the unit now has enough power to function essentially as Orban's secret police. To go over all the bad parts of Orban would be to kind of miss the point, because I'm really more interested in the method here than the politics of Orban specifically, which you can probably interpret anti-globalist, blatantly anti-Semitic, ethno-state, totalitarian, anti-democracy, blah, blah. You all know, it's all obvious. But this, I want to go over this because it lends credence to the fact that the DOJ should begin mass arrests immediately. See, this is what I mean. Even without breaking the laws, it is possible to lose your democracy. Like any set of fortifications, they can be overtaken if they are not being manned and guarded and protected and defended the way institutions have to be to prevent their erosion. This is evidence right here. You can become a fascist authoritarian. You can destroy a country and rewrite its constitution without breaking any laws. You don't need to, because when you're in charge, you can just change the laws. It's that simple. There's nothing about, much in the same way that a nuclear power plant can be destroyed no matter how well guarded it is, given enough time, any democracy can be torn apart and replaced by an authoritarian dictatorship given enough time unless active steps are taken. Passive measures will never be enough. Now, the Republican Party here in America is disorganized and critically brain damaged for the most part, thankfully, which does lead to a kind of selective incompetence on certain issues, particularly, supplanting our democracy. You can only expect so much competence from people who are being led by Trump. However, even without January 6th, the Supreme Court will soon be ruling and setting precedent on the independent state legislator doctrine, which, if affirmed in the most severe sense, Moore v. Harper, thank you. I always forget the actual name of the case. Moore versus Harper. If they rule in the most extreme case, if they rule against a century and a half of precedent, red states, or that is to say states that have Republican legislators, which is a majority of them, will be able to rewrite the rules on federal election processes, even if it goes against their own constitutions within the state, and they will essentially be able to appoint the victor. We will be fucked. Like, properly fucked. Like, if they crack down on that, they will have legal pretense to just do whatever they want. That could be within less than a year, the ruling. Because at that point, they could literally just, write any rules. We're just going to break the state into 872,000 districts that guarantee the Republicans will win every time. There will be nothing we can do unless we're willing to take active measures. The line of legality here is largely uninteresting to me. Legality is a shitty metric to go by when people are legally destroying democracy and people are posing illegal options to promote freedom and dignity and decency. Legality is a very bad metric for arriving at good solutions here. But we don't even have to make that tough decision, because legally the Biden administration could, through the Department of Justice, right now stop this with mass arrests. That is not illegal. You are allowed to do that. It is the Department of Justice. That is the executive branch's responsibility. They enforce the law. They can do that. They have the right to do that. Of course, we had the Mar-a-Lago raid by the feds earlier, which is great. I'm happy that went through, and I hope something comes of it. But learn from Orban, and learn from the Republicans' fixation with Orban. There is a reason they held a separate CPAC in Hungary. What a weird thing to do. There is a reason he was the opener for the CPAC convention. Don't you think it's a bit odd? Texas, where they held CPAC, also the state that recently adopted the state GOP platform of Brandon faked the election, we should literally just be a fascist theocracy, etc., etc. And then they headline it with a fascist who just 2 weeks ago made statements about keeping the racial purity of Hungary. They're not being subtle. Like, not even a little bit. But I'll be honest with you guys, Frankly, even if it weren't for all the January 6th stuff, I'd be okay with them being arrested anyway. Because as far as I'm concerned, being anti-democracy as a political candidate or official in a democracy is sedition. That might be a loose interpretation of the law. You'd feel free to write a new one if you want. I don't care. Legality is not a perfect translation of moral, decision-making anyway. It's an imperfect translation. When there's even a relationship between the two, Holocaust was legal, etc., etc. If you are an anti-democracy candidate, I just don't think you should be able to run. If you want to run so badly, do a coup. If you don't like democracy, you don't get it. You have to do your own methods for attaining power. Great, congratulations. You have to do it. You have to do it your way. You like authoritarianism so much? Great. Authoritarianly take over this country with its 2 million soldiers. Go for it. Yeah, have fun. Great. That's what I believe. Legal experts, constitutional scholars, soy-pilled, cuck-maxed constitutional lawyers might take a moment out of their day to stop sipping Soylent and watching their girlfriend get railed by a man twice their size to turn to me and say, Vaush, that's not legal. And I say to them, get back in the cuck shed. I don't care. I don't. Not of interest to me. Yeah. I want to talk about the Orban thing mostly because the Republicans are just screaming from the top of their lungs what they want to do, right? Like that's all. They're like at what point does it become obvious enough that this gets taken like the threat that it is, That is just past a point. I don't know. I mean, it almost defies analysis, right? Like, what witticism can I produce on that? Like, oh, hey guys, the political party that has spent years undermining our democracy institutionally and then attempted a coup, then failed, then defended the guy who attempted the coup, and then still defend the coup, and also that appointed Supreme Court justices that are trying to make it easier to do future coups, the sort of infinite coup cycle. And have their conferences being mainlined by fascists who took over their country, who took over his country through slow, bureaucratic, legal capture. Like, we know what they want to do. Whatever. And as we have learned from the Mar-a-Lago visit, Republicans will scream authoritarianism literally no matter what we do, Any exercise of legal power over them, legitimate or illegitimate, warranted or unwarranted, extreme or minor, will be framed by them as some horrific violation of their civil rights and evidence of the world gone mad. So, clearly their feelings are not something we can reasonably account for here. They also had a speaker who displayed a banner. Oh yeah, I saw this as well from CPAC. This was a good one. This is a very good thing for the Republican Party that represents hundreds of millions of Americans to display at its event. This is okay. This is not just the most blatant evidence of them encouraging stochastic terrorism imaginable. I mean, don't get me wrong, accurate and all, but this is a prescriptive statement. This isn't saying that they're all terrorists in their mind. This is them saying they should all be them. This clip is better of the wraparound.
Are all domestic terrorists. Please welcome founder of the ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, like you can see it. Yeah, the wraparound. Yeah. Do you think liberals see a threat at all? I think they do, but the critical thing that us lefties, I say us lefties, like I'm not getting watched right now by like 2/3 liberals. The critical thing that lefties and cool liberals like you guys need to do is convince other liberals of how big of a deal this is. We're beyond, in my opinion, we are right now beyond the point. Listen, there's two things we have to accept. In my opinion, we're beyond the point where just good results in the election can make the difference. Because especially with the Supreme Court ruling, like it might be for nothing. You know, you can't oust Supreme Court justices without impeachment. That's important. We need to do as well as we can in the midterms. That on its own can't prevent them from destroying democracy. The only thing that can really prevent them from destroying democracy is taking them as a threat seriously and getting the Biden administration or just any existing set of institutions to engage in the mass arrests, the big crackdown. You know, we need this to be taken seriously. In the same way that Republicans will buy 50 guns and stockpile $10,000 of ammunition anytime like gas prices raise by 2 cents or Obama said that he was going to like do healthcare or something. Liberals need to have that attitude about Republicans. We need fierce, dedicated, politically targeted paranoia at everything the Republicans are doing, because frankly, that paranoia ends up being valid like every time. The worst interpretation of Republicans' intentions is consistently and reliably the most accurate one. Oh, they're doing something because they're racist and they hate you and they want you dead. Oh, wow, that actually does explain their behavior pretty well. What a coincidence, you know? So in that case, like that natural response, that's something that people need to have, you know? And I think that's a good thing to do when you're on the precipice of losing your democracy. I don't think that's an unreasonable belief. What else can you do? Paranoia might not be the right word, frankly. Paranoia implies, you know, maybe wariness, vigilance. CNN is learning. Let me see.
Or political party, and I think we're all just having a hard time wrapping our arms around the fact that this is who this party is. I mean, that was a crazy thing, right? A January 6th defendant in a mock jail cell. But what does that mean? That means everybody at CPAC, they don't believe January 6th was a big deal or a bad thing. And that's where the base is. And again, we go through this exercise every week or two. The country needs to understand that my former political party is fully anti-democracy. It is a fascist political party. It is a political party that embraces authoritarianism. We got to move on now and just defeat them.
But Charlie, moving on is
yes. And by the way, that needs to be the mild take on the issue, okay? I want people on MSNBC with a katana threatening to commit seppuku if Biden doesn't unleash the DOJ and arrest 10,000, you know, Republican officials right there. That's what we need. Okay, that I need a range of expression, the mildest of which is they're fascists and they need to be destroyed, and the most extreme of which involves ritualistic suicide. Hell yeah. You don't do seppuku with the katana, Vaush. You use the smaller wakizashi. I apologize. With the wakizashi, I'm sorry. The MSNBC correspondent should have that, okay? How could I forget? A katana is too long to disembowel yourself. You need a smaller sword. Okay.